we are yet to see Jura's full form, and I think this is very concerning, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this. The fact that Jura has been holding back this entire arc, and every time we have seen Jura, he really has not been trying. And this has been clearly shown ever since the fight between Boruto Kawaki versus Jura. This fact was made quite clear, and from everything that I can see Ikemoto hinting right now, Jura has a final form that he hasn't showed us. This is either a form that we will see Jura gradually step into, or this is a form that he has been intentionally holding back, as nobody has been on his level and has been able to push him to have to use this power. And we have multiple hints at either option being quite viable. The fact that we are already seeing the Senju grow with the time that they get to spend in this realm. The fact that the Senjus obviously have these crazy abilities coming from their host, but they don't necessarily know how to use them. Just like we had Hidari, he had to understand that without the Sharingan, he couldn't use Chidori at a perfect rate. It showcases how the Senju, although they have these crazy abilities, they still have to learn. And learning they actually have been doing, as no other character, even Jura himself, he wasn't capable of hiding his chakra signal when he first arrived into the leaf. But when we see Mamushi come into the leaf, he has acquired this Otsutsuki ability, who we have been told that only the Otsutsukis are capable of doing, that is hiding your chakra signal. This tells us and leans under the interpretation that there are reserved powers that Jura himself has not used and will eventually grow to use. And that's why, alongside all the other evidence that is currently being pointed to, Jura has another form that he hasn't showed us. And we can clearly see this by simply examining the Ten-Tails. The Ten-Tails is an entity who, at its final form, it ends up having a Rinne Sharingan. Although we have seen all the Senju members have the Rinnegan, none of them have showcased this said Rinne Sharingan. And even in the 4th Great Ninja War, the Ten-Tails had not eaten an Otsutsuki, but it still had the Rinne Sharingan, which could eventually lead towards Infinite Tsukiyomi being cast. So it's not like in order for the Ten-Tails to obtain the Rinne Sharingan, it is something that requires an Otsutsuki. That is not the case. But we do not see that Jura himself has it. And the Ten-Tails, even when it was a juvenile Ten-Tails operating under Jigen, it still had the Rinne Sharingan. But Jura himself doesn't. So I believe that as they grow into their powers, just like we have seen characters like Mamushi showcase these abilities like being able to hide your chakra signal, I do believe that we're eventually going to see Jura obtain this Rinne Sharingan. Characters like Hidari could also even go further to awaken the Rinne Sharingan similar to his host Sasuke, which would then allow him to use the Chidori, which would be something that is quite interesting to see when we end up finally getting Sarada versus Hidari. So in Jura's final form, I believe that he will have the Rinne Sharingan. But that's not truly it, as before we even saw the fight between Boruto and Kawaki versus Jura, we already knew that Jura was broken. But after seeing that fight itself, we learn of another crazy ability that Jura has, as we see that Jura is capable of using the Divine Tree roots. What is quite interesting is that we know that the Ten-Tails ended up evolving in a completely different dimension, a dimension that Code had access to, the same dimension in which we see the missing Otsutsukis. But we don't know its exact location in this world. At least what we do know is that it is likely not in this planet. But somehow we have Jura's Divine Tree roots that have taken over this planet. And the reason we know this to be the case is that Jura, even while in the Sand Village, he is capable of using the Divine Tree roots to protect him versus Kawaki, and also to heal him. And I believe that this is truly Jura's most broken ability, and when we do see this final showdown, it's going to be something that we definitely have to consider. As we saw that Kawaki, even with his exponential growth in power after getting his limiters removed, we saw that Kawaki was not capable of even scratching those Divine Tree roots. And that is quite crucial in showcasing the difference that we see with these Divine Tree roots and that of the Divine Tree in the past. As a ration shuriken that Naruto ended up using as an attack towards Madara, it was capable of cutting a good portion of the divine tree, leading to Madara absorbing it. But Kawaki, who is a lot stronger than Naruto at the time, drastically at that, he didn't do any damage to the divine tree roots. And that is clearly due to the advanced durability that it must have. Although Jura has this ability coming from the Ten Tails, it is enhanced with Otsutsuki DNA, not only from Ishiki, but that of Shibai Otsutsuki. So clearly what we're seeing right here is a Ten Tails on steroids, plus the fact that he has consciousness, and plus the fact that we have Jura who is capable of learning and obtaining new abilities, and figuring out new ways of fighting. The more he interacts, the more he gets to learn. So the longer Jura stays in this world, the stronger Jura is naturally going to become, the better he's going to become at using said abilities. As we have Jura himself, I like the fact that we have with Ikemoto, he really introduced this concept, which before to me didn't make the most sense, but when analyzing the material a lot further, it does make quite a bit of sense. The Shinja have come to be with consciousness and have these random abilities that have been given to them. They don't necessarily know how to use it at max, but the more and more they get a chance of fighting, the better they actually end up becoming. As we see that with Jura multiple times, with his ability of the Bijou Bombs, he has been able to create multiple different times of Bijou Bomb activations that resemble different sorts of weaponry. We see that he is capable of sniping opponents from very far locations, as he did to Sarada and as he did to Boruto. We had him comment that his aim is not the best, and we will gradually come to see the more he uses said abilities that his aim is going to become better. When he was fighting in mid-range versus Boruto, we see him utilize a more rifle-like manner of using the Bijou Bombs, and when he is in close range, as we saw with Himawari, he uses this more shotgun-like Bijou Bomb that splatters in multiple different locations, just like a shotgun when he is testing out Himawari's healing ability. These are some of the different ways in which we have seen Jura utilize his ability, and in the fight versus Boruto and Kawaki, which happened after we had already seen a couple demonstrations of said abilities, we then see him utilize the Divine Tree Roots. And what's quite interesting with that is that, as I've mentioned, it seems like he is capable of spawning it out of nowhere, which means that on some level, this planet is already wrapped around the Divine Tree Roots. But it will also grant him an ability of being able to drain various people's chakra. It's going to be quite interesting to see a more offensive version of the Divine Tree Roots. So alongside an eventual upgrade for Jura when it comes to him obtaining the RinneSharingan, maybe it is when he devours somebody, or maybe it is when he finally understands love, as we have seen with multiple various dojutsus that love does play a factor in obtaining it, as we saw with the Sharingan itself. So we could definitely see Jura expand on said abilities that he is already starting to showcase. And Jura, having this vast array of abilities, we have seen that he has wood style, different sorts of Bijou Bombs, and now with these Divine Tree Roots, he can drain other people's chakra. He has this sort of armory that he could end up using, and we see him use it to heal himself. Jura is absolutely broken, and it would be fair to say that he has shown abilities unbeknown to all of the other Senjus. Characters like Hidari, we have seen that they have to go back to the Divine Tree Root dimension, where they are eventually healed by the Divine Tree. But Jura, unlike all of the other Senjus, as their leader, clearly there's a difference, he is capable of spawning it wherever he desires. So with a potential offensive maneuver of this ability, Jura can really start to drain other people's chakra when he ends up fighting them. That's something I could definitely see being explored when it comes to Jura's abilities. And this leads me on perfectly as to what exactly can be done. Because Jura right now, he is not at his final form, but he is already looking like an opponent who is unbeatable, especially with these Divine Tree Roots. So I clearly don't believe that Jura is going to be somebody who is going to be disintegrated. I don't think Jura can be killed. He really looks like he is immortal to me. But the second option that we see when we have these type of characters, these type of villains that can't really be dealt with when it comes to ordinary means of simply killing them, I believe that we have to see Kawaki and Boruto find a way to seal Jura. maybe this is an Otsutsuki technique in which they are capable of defeating Jura by sealing him, using some sort of planetary devastation, something that we saw quite similar to Hagoromo, where he ended up giving them those abilities, Naruto and Sasuke, which led to them using said abilities to end up defeating Kaguya by sealing her. We can first see Boruto and Kawaki wear Jura down, which would then lead to him being weakened enough where he can be sealed, but that's my biggest question. Where exactly are they going to find those abilities? Where exactly are they going to learn about sealing abilities? And that's my biggest question. Has Kashin Koji actually seen a future where Jura is defeated? As we keep talking about the worst possible future, but what is the outcome that they're trying to lead to? Isn't an outcome where Jura ultimately ends up being befriended and works alongside the Leaf? I don't know if it's going to be possible, as they have already started to fight, or is this something that Kashin Koji has not seen exactly a future where they can win, and they're just stalling for time, so that more time ends up passing where we could eventually get to learn what exactly can be done. As Boruto and Kawaki survive even longer, we get to figure out and see more futures in which Boruto gets closer to defeating Jura. That's where, in my opinion, it is either the Jagon or other Otsutsuki's come into play, where Boruto dives deep and figure out more of these Otsutsuki abilities that could be used. That's why when Momoshiki ends up confronting Jura in Boruto's body, it's going to be crucial in figuring out exactly how Jura can be defeated. So my question to you is, do you think we can see more powers from Jura? And if that is the case, is Jura's defeat something that is truly viable? Are we going to see this arc last a lot longer, which ultimately leads to Kashin Koji seeing further into the future, giving them a better chance at defeating Jura? But in my opinion, it really lies with the Jagon. And if you want to know exactly how Boruto will utilize the Jagon to defeat Jura, watch this video right here.